We are live. Yep. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. So today, Mary and I have the opportunity to spend a little time with Ryan, who hosts a weekly live podcast called Galaxy CD Rocks and Flips Reselling Talk Podcast. Did I get
It's
it
a
right?
mouthful, isn't it?
Mouthful. And we'll give Ryan an opportunity to chat and tell us all about his podcast and himself and his reselling model and all of that. I just wanted to beforehand just give you an idea of what we're going to start doing now. And this was Mary's brainchild. Since there's a little bit of a lull in the meetups right now, and we want to kind of keep the ball rolling with engaging the community. What we decided on doing was having all of as many of the YouTubers who have a regular live podcast on, and kind of like just give them an opportunity to showcase their show, so that people who might not become aware of those particular people become aware of. In fact, I was telling Ryan, I really wasn't, to be honest, I had not been aware of his show until Mary pointed it out to me, and I was pleasantly surprised. In fact, I'll tell you something funny. When I first turned your show on, Ryan, I thought I was in the wrong place. I'll tell you what I mean. Typically, as I'll speak for myself, but a lot of other podcasters and YouTubers are the same. Like, they have like sloppy background and everything, and it's kind of raw and unofficial and the like. But when I turned you on, I really thought I was like listening to an NPR recording or something. I love your backdrop with your bookshelf. And you have a radio voice that's to die for. I mean, great
Thank
voice.
you.
And you're very professional, and you have that little breaking news insert, and you really have a very classy podcast. So I just wanted to give you a little compliment right off the bat, and I really enjoy it, and I encourage others to check him out. I think you're on every Wednesday at 11 Eastern.
Yeah, I've got two shows. The live one is Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern most of the time. Like this past week, I didn't do one because I was outsourcing, but that's pretty consistent, Wednesday at 11. And then the main podcast, which is the one you're talking about, that's not live, but that comes out generally Monday mornings.
That's pre-recorded, yeah.
Yes.
So it's a good show. Good show. Very informative. He does a little bit of, what's sold, that, the breaking news, all keeps us current on everything, and basically, just it's a live interactive chat where where you will address any comments and questions that come along. So it's a really enjoyable hour, and you've done like a lot of, what do you have, like over 300 videos, I think, and counting at this point, right? So you've been at it for a while.
I'm pretty close to 300 of the main like weekly podcast, and then there's dozens of the live shows, and then I don't even know, 500 shorts that are like little snippets, clips out of the main podcast, so that you can get a bite-sized nugget of whatever's going on at Etsy or eBay or whatever.
Yeah, they're all good. So like I said, give Ryan a shot, check him out. If you have not yet checked him out, subscribe, give him a like to his channel, and I think it'll be you'll enjoy it. So why don't you start off by give us a little introduction to yourself, Ryan. How'd you get started? What I know you sell books and all, but I'll leave it up to you to
yeah. So my name's Ryan. I am a full-time reseller working out of my home in the greater Cincinnati area. I've been doing it full-time since 2019. I started the podcast shortly thereafter, just to kind of share, like most of us do, share my journey with reselling. It's kind of evolved over time. It's become much more about kind of sharing news and newsworthy events that might affect resellers. So changes in shipping rates, or like what's going on in Canada, for instance. We'll be talking about that this week. The back to work order is about to expire, and warnings are already going out that Canada Post may go on strike again. So that's the kind of stuff we cover. We'll be covering like the recent eBay summer seller check-in. So those kind of things that if you don't have time to do them yourself, you can tune in once a week for 30, 45 minutes and kind of get caught up on the biggest news of the week. I felt like that was a niche that probably wasn't being really well served. So that's kind of where I ended up. In terms of selling, I'm like everybody else. I'll sell anything I think I can make a buck on. But over time, it kind of, I discovered that books was an area where there's a great opportunity to source which I'm sure we'll get into, big amounts of inventory for really, really low prices and kind of create like a really nice base bread and butter business. So, I see sellers all the time talk about, I haven't sold anything today or for a week or whatever. And with books and media in general, I've been able to like build a big enough of a base that that's not something that I generally have to even be concerned about. I'm selling 100 to 150 items a week. So I've got nice, steady cash flow.
Nice.
Some of it's, 8, 10, 12 bucks, and some of it's 60, 80, $100. So it all comes out in the wash.
So
But it was just a really great opportunity. And it's one of the things I try to share with people again on the show, that if you're overlooking some of these categories, if you're looking to build kind of a base of some bread and butter stuff, media in particular, might be a good opportunity to do that. So that's kind of my story. I mean, there's a lot more.
There's plenty more.
What were you doing before you started reselling? How did your career evolve?
Well, I spent 30 plus years in a traditional retail. So like I was a GM for Best Buy and Office Max and that kind of thing. And in 2000, I left the traditional workforce and opened my own CD and record store, which is where the name Galaxy CDs comes from. That was the name of my little shop. And I did that for a little over a decade. Then I kind of bounced around through a few different things. I worked for Microsoft in their stores for a while. I sold cars for a while, just trying to find something that I enjoyed. And I was selling cars. It was August of 2019. Beautiful sunny day. I'm a big cyclist. I like to get out and ride. And I'm sitting in my little cubicle staring out the window at a car lot with no customers on a beautiful like 80-degree sunny day. And I'm like, I don't think I've got 20 more years of this in me.
Felt trapped, did you?
Right. So I started looking around for something that I thought I could do that would kind of free up my schedule and allow me to kind of make those decisions. Hey, this afternoon's a nice day. I want to go for a bike ride, and I could just go do it. But that I could also use kind of my entrepreneurial bent to kind of scratch that itch. And I stumbled on reselling on YouTube. And I still had some CDs left over from when I had the store, and I had my eBay store from when I'd had it. So I just started throwing some of that stuff on eBay and really quickly found that it was something that I could do and was making okay money with. And within 60 days, I left my job at the car dealership and went full time doing this, which is not what they recommend.
No.
But I was in a little bit of a different position. I'd had some investments and some savings, so I had some money. I did the budgeting, and I'm like, even if I don't sell anything, I can go maybe 18 months on my investments and my savings. So I had a pretty nice backstop where if it was a total fiasco, I wasn't going to lose my car and my house and, whatever. And as it turned out, I never had to tap into any of that. The business was successful quickly enough that it just became self-sustaining really quickly. And here I am coming up on 6 years later, still doing it.
Great. Do you remember what your first sale was? The first ka-ching? It's always significant memory.
No, the first one that really kind of set me on the path, I had a CD from my CD store by a band called the Revivalists. I don't know if you've heard of them. They had a big hit a few years ago. I can't remember the name of it. If I knew now what I did when I was young or something like that. It's kind of a bluesy riff. They're from New Orleans now, but the singer from the band is from my hometown. His high school band used to actually play in my record store. So I had their first CD, which was self-released, wasn't on a label, whatever. Pretty hard to find. There were only, 1,000 of them probably ever made. I put it up at auction, and it sold for like $115. And I was like, okay.
We can do this.
So that was the really the one that triggered that if you got the right stuff and found the right buyer, you could really capitalize on it and make some money. And that was the one. I sold a lot of like $3 and $5 stuff prior to that, but that was the trigger for me that if I did it right, I could do it full time.
Right, your memorable sale, your memorable first sale, the thing that kind of encouraged you to continue.
Yeah, definitely.
Now you have kind of an interesting place that you store your books. Can you tell us about that?
So I've had multiple. So I started, everything was in my house, and I've got it's a 3-bedroom, 2-story, 2-car detached garage, pretty good sized place, and it's just me. And at the time it was a cat. Now it's a dog. But I had like every room in the house had boxes of books and stuff. And I finally decided I needed to get some of that out of here. So I rented a small offsite kind of storage unit, and then I rented a bigger one. And then I ran into at the post office one day a guy who used to shop in my record store, and he's like, "Hey, are you still doing the book selling thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "Are you ever looking for warehouse space?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I'm about to outgrow my current storage unit. Why do you ask?" And he's like, "Well, I own a warehouse right around the corner. I've got spaces that are being built out now. If you're interested, come take a look." Well, I went over, and he had one space that was being built out. It was supposed to be 2 roughly 750 square foot spaces, but the wall in between hadn't been completed yet. And I said, "What kind of deal could you give me if I took the whole thing just as it sits?"
That's a nice space.
Yeah, and it's a really nice, it's in an old, late 1800s era warehouse, with the oldest working freight elevator of its kind in the state of Ohio, which is sometimes broken down, but nonetheless,
That's charm.
yeah, it's a really charming old space, and he leased me all that space for $225 a month.
Wow.
Which is just in a big city you couldn't do that, but in a small town, and some people, and all of a sudden you got a really good deal. Subsequently, I've leased another 400 or 500 square feet off of him just to kind of round out what I need. But it's really been fantastic. It's less than a mile from my house. So kind of my process is I go to a sale and I bring everything here to the house. And then as I work it, all the completed product then goes over to that warehouse for permanent storage. Pretty much every morning I run over there and pick my orders from the day before and ship everything, and the process just kind of repeats. But yeah, it's been fantastic. I tell him every time I see him, this thing has just been a godsend for me.
Yeah. It's important that it's close to your house because, I know of other resellers who have storage area 20, 30 minutes away, and, you got to go when you have to go. But it limits you into going on a regular basis. So this sounds like it's a great setup for you. It's really an extension of your house just being a mile away.
Yep. No, it's been perfect. When my car was in the shop, I was able to just walk over there with my IKEA bag and grab my inventory and walk back, because it's not so far that it makes that like an impossible venture. So it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
And you do have a video tour on your channel, and was that I watched it. I just don't remember if it's a standalone video or if it was the end of a Monday video or what.
I think it was just a quick standalone, because I did a couple of what were originally members only videos, and I had some members that had reached out and asked about that. So it's just a 4 or 5 minute little video where I go over and just do a quick walkthrough of kind of what the space looks like and how I do my inventory management, how all the boxes and the bins are labeled and all that kind of stuff, so that people kind of get a feel for what I do there. But you don't have to remember the whole name to find the channel. If you just go onto Google and search Galaxy CDs or Galaxy CDs Rocks, I think the first 2 pages of Google search results, all of them but one, are something to do with me. It's either my eBay store or Etsy. I used specifically that same name, the Galaxy CDs portion, in like everything, the podcast, the YouTube, the Instagram, the TikTok. So it's super easy to find. You just put that into search and pick your poison of which version of me you're interested in.
The elevator, I remembered that was really cool. It's I like history, so I mean, just that that it's from the late 1800s, and
yeah,
I thought that was really cool. So where did the idea where did the idea for the news on Monday morning come from? I know you said it was a kind of a niche that was, well, not a niche, but it was just something that nobody else was doing. But I will just really quick, I will say that news updates that Mike was talking about, I will literally catch myself running around the house saying that. It's really
yep.
So where did that idea come up with? where did you
It
come up
was,
with that?
I was just initially, when you start YouTube, you're never quite sure what it is exactly you want to do. And I was just trying different things. I did some haul videos and I did a couple of estate walkthroughs, and I was just trying to find something that kind of fit what I was comfortable doing, that also kind of hit something that
Right.
wasn't really in the marketplace. And
Serve the purpose as well.
right. And the news was one thing that I kept getting feedback on from viewers and listeners that, hey, we really appreciate this, because I don't have the time or the desire to go troll through eBay's community posts looking for information and then do the same thing at Etsy, and then, check the post office's website and look at the IRS. And you consolidating all this down once a week really helps me kind of stay on top of things that I need to know without having to do that myself. So over time, I found that I didn't like really doing the estate haul videos and that kind of stuff. And that there's millions of channels out there that are doing that were doing it way better than I was doing it. But this piece, I'm pretty good at. I've got the equipment, and, as you said, I appreciate it.
You
It's,
do it well.
I'm able to deliver, a little bit more of maybe a professional looking experience, and something that you can, if you don't want to watch, you just want to listen, you can put it on in the background. And I've got numerous people that do that on Monday morning. They just put it on in the background as they're packing or taking photos, and they get caught up on the news and they're ready to go for the week. So
it's great. It's great.
And
And as I said, I mean, I literally thought I had stumbled upon NPR when I saw your presentation. It's really good. And I did want to make another point that you are very well rounded as well, both in your selling model and the approach to how you disseminate the information with your news. You're not, you're certainly not an eBay centric seller,
right,
or news moderator, but you cover, you also sell on Posh and Etsy. I think Macari as well.
Yeah. And I try to cover even sites that I don't personally sell on. I've done a lot of shows on Poshmark, which is a big platform, but it's not one that I sell on, but it's important to other people. The only one that I really struggle with, to be fair, is Amazon, because a lot of their information is only put out through their seller central, and I don't sell over there, so I don't get access to a lot of stuff. So it's got to be a pretty breaking event that hits somewhere else, so I'm able to find it. But yeah, I do try to cover all the sites and try to be balanced, I guess. I try to not be sensationalistic about,
very
they yeah, well, they introduce something, and it may be good, it may be bad, and I'll call it like I see it, but I'm not one of these the sky is falling kind of people, which is why I've had some of the platforms that have reached out to me to tell me that they've appreciated, the even-handedness and kind of the insights that I bring. David Lee, the VP from Mercari, was on the show at one point late last year. And he and his team were fantastic about reaching out. And, we listen every week because we appreciate the fact that you present this stuff without necessarily making it personal or getting super negative. You just call it like it is. And to be fair, during that time, they had a lot of stuff to call. But, even having been, pretty critical about some of the decisions they make, they were willing to come on the show and have a conversation about it. So I feel like it's working.
I think you do a good job, because it's refreshing in this day and age where all the news feeds are very sided, biased in one direction or the other. I mean, politically and all.
Yeah.
I won't get into politics, but yours is really completely stay away from that hot topic. And you just deal it out in an even tempered way, and very, very thorough. I love how you usually approach it. We have some good news, some not so good news, and then some great news, and then you just go ahead and you meet it out accordingly. So that's really very good, and it is very handy. Like I said, it's not that I don't have the time. You make the time for whatever's interests you.
Right.
I don't have the inclination to go into e-commerce bites and do all that research and read those long-winded eBay quarterly seller updates. So by listening to you, you get a concise, treatment of everything that you need to know, and it's very, very, very useful. And I think you made another point which I can kind of align myself with, where you kind of found your own niche in your channel, because you started off doing the hauls and this and that, and there's something that you and we have in common, that we kind of like have kind of like a little bit unique spin on our content, where I could have, like, when I was toying with the idea of starting a channel, I was speaking to a friend, and he was trying to encourage me in getting started. And I said, well, does the YouTube world really need another reselling channel? I mean, and I'm not knocking any of the what sold videos and the picking videos and the haul videos. I watched them all. I love them all, and that's how I really learned, to get an understanding of our craft. But do we really need another one? And would I dare to come on the scene and just be one of the many, because I'm not the best. So I wouldn't be the best at any of them. So my friend said, well, you know what? Think about it. And when something hits you, when something speaks to you, that's something that's unique, because we all have a voice. We all have something to contribute. And then when it dawned on me, another friend made a recommendation. He said, Mike, you should just do you're at all the meetups. You love it. You have a passion for it. You wanted to kind of do a YouTube channel now. Why don't you start a meetup channel, which is pretty much, kind of unique. So we start with a leg up, so that we're not in the pack of competition. So even though my channel's a little raw, and I really don't know what I'm doing, to be quite frank, but I muddle through it. It's somewhat successful, because there's not much content out there that shows that do what we do, and it serves, and like your show as well, serves a valid purpose for the community, and that and people really tune into that. They really get that, and Mary will tell you, we've had such an outpouring of support when we first started the channel. I mean, even that, you inviting us on your show and countless other ones. I mean, we were on, I don't know, about 15 or 20 different shows, Mary, when we first got started. And
it was a lot.
People are not to do that, but just encouraging us to come out and to make everyone aware of what we're doing, and really, really very, very heartwarming that the community embraced us so gratefully, that we were able to kind of get on the map a little bit. It helps.
Oh yeah, and we talked offline before we even got started about the communities that have formed around these live channels. Like my Wednesday live, I've got whatever 60, 80, 100 people that are there pretty much every week, and the support that they show for each other.
Sure.
In the chat, I can't even get to the questions, and they're already answering them in the chat and that kind of stuff. So you've got, all of these little individual channels that have all built like little communities, and then they're all like loosely connected to each other, and they talk and they appear on each other's shows, and that's
some overlapping, some not. Yeah.
Right. And that's how people end up getting discovered. Because like we talked about, it's really hard for people to, I've been doing this for 5 years, and 2,200 subscribers. And I mean, it's a small niche. Not even every reseller is going to care to hear reselling news every week, but it's really hard to get found in the sea of reselling content. So those little networking opportunities are huge.
Sure, definitely. And the meetups definitely facilitate that as well. Because now you're in a room like we were down in Nashville, Mary and I, and it was like 200 resellers. Now that comprised like maybe 5 or 6 different sub communities that there was some overlapping, but some weren't really aware of other content providers, and we all got an opportunity to, as I said, I use the phrase cross pollinate. We all kind of like just learn some new channels for us, and then we widen our horizons with the YouTubers, and it really helps.
Right. And you can learn, even if people don't sell in your niche, or their YouTube content is completely different from yours, you can pick up, little tidbits on how to do something, or germinates an idea that, I could do this on my channel if I did it like that. Those kind of things,
Sure.
They talk about, like, in the quote unquote professional world, the work at home thing, the thing that gets lost when people aren't in the office is those like serendipitous conversations over the water cooler. And
so beneficial. Yeah. So helpful.
Oh yeah. Whether it's a live meetup or a YouTube live or whatever it is, getting, 20, 30, 80, 200 people together in a room, you'll have those conversations, and people will will learn things or come up with new ideas that you just wouldn't have come up with otherwise. So they're fantastic.
Sure. Invariably, every meetup that I've gone to, in addition just to being so much fun, and there might be speakers, so you learn some particular informational content from them. Though all that aside, invariably, there's always 5 or 6 different things that I've just picked up from casually speaking to someone over coffee at the meetup, or just like a little hangout or whatever. And it really does help. Really rounds us as resellers to be able to come together and share our individual experiences. And it's informal. It's so casual. It's just comfortable. We're hanging out. I mean, you get resellers together, and basically all we're going to talk about is reselling for the most part. But there's always plenty to talk about. It's entertaining. It's encouraging. It's informative.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, clearly he was already going to meetups when he started the channel. He loved meetups. Now, were you one that would kind of scour the internet for the news? Were you already interested in that? So it was kind of an easy transition into your channel?
Yeah, I keep track of all that stuff for myself anyway. And I'm on, a couple of groups, and, I follow Liz at Value Added Resource, and I follow the newsletter from E-commerce Bytes. So that stuff is, as a business person, those are things that were important to me. I think a lot of resellers, maybe they don't treat it necessarily as a business. They look at it just more casually. And I really, having had a business before and knowing about outside influences and taxes and, whatever that might impact your business, it was something that was important to me to kind of keep track of. So I was already doing it anyway. And it just made sense to then, especially when I saw that it looked like kind of a hole in the marketplace on YouTube or for podcasts, that people would cover, big events, but kind of a daily, weekly recap. Nobody was really doing that. So it just kind of fit.
Yeah. And I just like Mike was saying, I appreciate that you cover everything. Like, he sells on eBay and I don't. I sell on Poshmark and Mercari. He doesn't at this point, but you cover everything. And I know you sell on a couple different platforms, but you cover everything. And I do feel like, I mean, you might give your opinion here and there, but it's from an educated perspective, but
Hopefully.
it's very unbiased news. I do feel like it's unbiased news, and you're not doing the sky is falling. So I seriously, I've listened every Monday morning for years. I can honestly say that I really do enjoy it. So how did you come up with the Wednesday live idea? What made you decide to go ahead and start doing that?
I was looking for, and it's one of those things I've gone back and forth with the podcast. At one point I was doing those live, even the main podcast. But I had kind of settled in on, recording that either late in the week or over the weekend and then putting that out on Monday. And I wanted to do more kind of interactive content. I wanted to spend some time kind of with the people who were listening and watching, and a live format just made more sense. The timing, Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. is probably not ideal, especially for people who are, only doing this part-time. But I was trying not to get into competing with someone else's channel. So it just kind of found a time that worked for me, and kind of splits up my day a little bit, splits up the week. It's a nice break. Anything that happens early in the week, we can cover on Wednesday, and then we catch everything up on the weekend. So it just kind of grew organically as something I wanted to try. And like you were talking about with yours, the response was really good. People were showing up and they were sharing and commenting, and really seemed to appreciate it. So I've tried to be super consistent about continuing to do it. Obviously, my business is the priority. If an opportunity comes to go source or do something, something's got to fall by the wayside, that would be the thing. But by and large, I've been able to work around it. So,
yeah, our community definitely has a yearning for connectedness. And as we all know, it's kind of just to do your own thing and source and list and everything is kind of lonely. and it's rewarding. I mean, I love it, even if it was just a lonely thing. But we're people, we're people, and we yearn for community. That's why the meetups are so great and so well received, because people get the opportunity once a year or every couple of months to go out and hang out with with our community, like-minded people. And the nice thing about these live streams is that it's pretty much the same thing. I've always said, I'll tell you a little known secret. You really don't have to go to a meetup to have a meetup, to connect with community. Right. Just go, like even the pre-recorded videos, there's a certain interaction within the chat. People comment and people reply to comments, and then you kind of get to know each other just through the chat. And then when you have a live stream, it's an enhanced version of that, where you actually in real time can get together and chat and again create that community. And you feel, even though you're really not meeting each other face to face, it's the next best thing. And we all know hundreds and hundreds of resellers through this vehicle. That's why I felt, when we started our channel, it really evolved. I had no concept of what we were going to do. I knew we were going to cover meetups and basically before, during, and after kind of deal. That was the first pass at structure. We did interviews with the organizers, and then I knew I was going to do something. Some form of coverage, whether it be a vlog or whatever during the event, and then a little wrap up at the end. So that was basically it. But as it evolved, as I started, going to these meetups, I says, well, you know what? Let's do a live stream right during the event, which was definitely well received, because that was like a brainstorm. I didn't come up with it. It just happened. I said, well, this is a great way to go, because, if we as a meetup channel have a mission to foster the meetups and encourage people to come to meetups and whatever, and give them the notion of how beneficial and how enjoyable it is, then what better way than to actually embedded within the meetup to have a live stream, where now people who are sitting at home, who maybe wanted to come to the meetup, or maybe didn't have an inclination to go but were curious, would actually come, and really we bring the meetup right into your home, and so, to the point where if you wanted to meet someone that you happen to be following, at home, and they're at the meetup, you could literally have a conversation with them. And we did the first one at Boss was funny. I had Archie as my runner. He was my producer. He was holding the camera, but whenever I needed someone in the chat made a request to speak to this one particular person, Archie, go get him. So we went out in the crowd, grabbed him, and brought him back, and it was fun. It was really good. And then we just started a new thing, which just with, I think, starting with Planes to Profit, where, I had done a wrap-up video for Boss. The first one that we covered was Boss in Las Vegas. And it was all right. It was a little dry. Like, okay, and I turned into a little bit of a haul video. This is what I got, and this was my feelings after the fact, what I enjoyed. But it was a little dry, So I says, you know what, let's do something a little bit more interactive. So we started doing these hangouts. So now after every meetup, we do a live hangout, another live stream, and open to everyone who was there, or even if they're not there, to come on screen with us. So it's kind of like a little reiteration of the event, where we had some of the people who were at the event on the screen, and then the people at home to be able to interact. So that was, two opportunities. So I really love, I think the live format is the best format for YouTube content, because it takes the best of both worlds. It's interactive, it engages the community to get together and to engage, and it's a lot of fun. And it's easy, no editing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You turn on the live button and you go, and then that's it. When it's done, you wrap it up, and you have a video.
Yep. And it's great to do that, like that recap live, because most of especially the bigger events, they'll have like multiple workshops going on all at the same time. It's not possible to be at all of them. And when you do that live event at the end, all the people who were at this one can tell everyone who was at the other one, and vice versa. So you end up being able to kind of get involved with everything that happened at the event, rather than just the little narrow window that you actually got to see. So,
I think it was as beneficial for the people who attended the meetups to attend this little wrap up as to the people who weren't there at all, didn't see anything. Because I know I learned a lot of stuff from watching. Because we're not the only ones. We don't have the corner on meetup coverage. I mean, 5 or 6 different
Sure.
channels did cover it, and I watched them all. And I there are a couple of the luncheons that I didn't get to, and I would like to. Like you said, there's conflicts, so I had an opportunity to like relive the meetup through other people's content as well.
Right. Yep.
And we actually promote those other channels also.
Right.
Obviously, we promote the so have you ever been to a meetup, and two, whether you have or not, what is the how do you feel about the community? What is community? Not how do you feel about, but what does it mean to you, the idea of community?
I've been to a couple of the like eBay local meetups, like last year before eBay Open, they had local sessions, and I've been to a couple of those. So again, just kind of like we talked about, the opportunity to network with people, but learn from people that maybe aren't in your niche, and you pick up little tips and tricks and ideas that you might not have thought of because I was telling somebody the other day, they were talking about they're buying a new home and they're getting ready for their walkthrough. And I was talking about how in retail, we would pretty regularly, a group of managers would go to someone else's store and do a walkthrough, because with a fresh set of eyes, you see things that you don't see when you're living in that world every day. And this was kind of the same thing. You get fresh perspectives from the community, again, whether it's in person or, people say stuff in the chat on my show all the time. I was doing, I don't know, it's probably a month and a half ago, I was doing just a listing show. I was sitting at my booth, taking pictures and doing my listings on eBay, and I had that on the screen as I was doing it. I was sharing, how I do my research and all that. And somebody put in the chat, hey, if you press the 3 buttons up here at the top, that will take you right to Sell Similar. You don't have to scroll down to find that. And I was like, I've been on eBay for, 25 years. I had no idea you could do that. So, you learn kind of how you're doing things, and you kind of stick to that rail. And then all of a sudden out here, you meet someone and they say, oh, you can do this. And your world just completely changed.
Right. I mean, how much time is that saving you?
Right.
Probably a lot.
Yeah. Especially when you're doing, 30, 40, 50 listings a day sometimes, even if it's only a few seconds, that adds up over the course of a day. So
yeah. With the amount of listings that you do, I mean, yeah, that's awesome. And they just happen to notice.
Right. Yep.
Right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, that was all the questions I had. Did you have something else you wanted to ask, or did you want to do some housekeeping before we have?
Let's just some programming notes, and then we'll let Ryan wrap it up and tell us whatever he might want to impart. I really want to thank you. It was great, great having you on. I really admire you and your channel and everything, and I really enjoy watching it. I'm glad I discovered it 4 years later. It's amazing. I mean, there's so much out there. And
Better late than never.
No, and Mary and I are both very, very persistent in keeping an eye on the YouTube community. It's just you really can't really catch it all, but we're expanding. We're expanding. So as far as programming notes, we will be having these interviews on a regular basis, probably one every week or every couple of weeks. So keep on the lookout for that. And what we are also doing is, I think that in addition to covering and reporting meetups, I think it's our responsibility to try to encourage meetups to happen. So what we're going to do is take an active participation in trying to establish meetups. Now, I'm not going to go to a different area and start and facilitate my own meetup all over, although I did happen to do one of my own meetups in Las Vegas last October. It was small, informal. But the idea is to kind of like spearhead an operation. Like I had mentioned in one of my shows, my desire to set up something in the St. Louis area. Right now, that seed was sown, and then at Nashville, Larry Wayman, who's in Larry Way Out, known as Larry Way Out on YouTube, came up to me and said, "Look, Mike, I have some information." And he had all these notes about different contacts, and he got a sponsor already. We have Venmo as a sponsor, so we're gonna probably set something up in St. Louis shortly. I'm in the process of creating a letter to distribute to all the local St. Louis, you know, YouTubers and influencers and other people that I know of in the area, and see if we can kind of put something together. And it's not going to stop there. I have feelers in different areas, the Utah area, North Carolina, because unfortunately the meetups, the formal meetups, are kind of drying up. There was a time when there were like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different meetups every year in different parts of the country. Like FlipCon is no longer a thing, and Trash to Cash, they did a few of them, but I'm personal friends with them, so I'm kind of scooching them to get something going and try to keep this alive, this whole meetup thing alive. So anyone, I say that all in the effort to convey to people that we're interested in like helping to facilitate meetups wherever they might occur. And Mary's great at keeping our social media channels open, and anyone who has any questions or any advice or any assistance, who wants to volunteer some information, to contact us, and we'll see if we can get something going. As long as we can at least put the right people together and push it out on a channel and see if there's interest and go from there. You never know what will happen. So if we don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. If we put 100 feelers out there and we end up having creating a couple or helping facilitating a couple of meetups, then our job has been done.
Yep,
that's my pitch.
I
go ahead.
Kind of say all the time, like with my show, my vision of success with my channel is that if every video I get at least one comment where somebody says that they learned something or discovered something that they didn't know before, that to me is a win. It's those one.
Absolutely.
It's a little thing here, a little thing there. Again, part of that community building.
Sure.
Those are the things that are important. I'm not here to have 100,000 subscribers or make millions of dollars on this channel. I really genuinely want to provide some kind of service that people appreciate and get something out of. And that's kind of the focus for me.
That's usually the case. Let's face it. None of us are going to get rich on YouTube. Very few. Some do. Yeah. But you really have to have a desire to help people as your main impetus. And if, like I said, if you made a very good point. If you could touch one person, and we feel the same way, we could help one person out. Then we've done our job. So that's all we could ask for, really, for sure.
And I was literally going to ask you what your goals for your business and your channel were when I was going to ask you to kind of introduce yourself again. Well, not introduce yourself, but say where we could find you. I was going to ask you that. So you just touched upon that. Goals for the channel and the business.
Yeah, in terms of the business, obviously I'm always trying to grow, but I'm not. To be fair, I'm not one of these people that wants to scale like to the point where I have to hire employees and all that kind of stuff. That's not where I'm at in my life. I got into it for the flexibility of the time and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to do. I spent 30 years in retail management. I don't want to do performance reviews and hiring and all that. I'm not interested. That's not the game I'm in. So there's kind of a ceiling on how much business I'll be able to do within the niche that I'm in. But if I could have nice, steady, ongoing growth, both for the channel and for the business, that's kind of the target. And I'm always, looking for new opportunities to do that in small ways that don't necessarily kind of have to reconfigure my whole apparatus in order to do. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as I look forward to the rest of this year.
Very good. I agree.
Good. Well, tell us again where we can find you and the full name of your channel.
Yep, the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Again, if you just search Galaxy CDs Rocks, that'll bring up the Instagram, the TikTok, the YouTube. The podcast is available pretty much anywhere you would listen to podcasts, so you can find it there as well. Again, it's generally speaking, it's 2 shows a week. The Monday morning show is kind of a news recap and a what sold segment where I'll recap, my better sales for whatever the time period is, the week or the 10 days. And then the Wednesday show is a live. Sometimes it'll be a tutorial. Sometimes it's me just sitting over in the back cave doing listings. Sometimes I'll have a particular news topic that I want to cover. So the main topic of that Wednesday show will change maybe from week to week, but that is still kind of the community meeting place where we can discuss, as you said, kind of in real time, problems that we're having as sellers or successes that we're having as sellers or new ideas, or have discussions about, changes at Poshmark or whatever the case may be, that was news of the week that people need to, either ask questions on or vent, and I don't claim to have all the answers. But again, when you get that community, you get 80, 100, 200 people in there. Somebody may know the answer to that. It doesn't necessarily have to be the host of the show. I had a boss once that told me that I don't know is a perfectly good answer to a question.
Absolutely.
I'm not one of these that's going to, oh, it's this, that, and then you find out you were totally wrong. So I will tell you if I don't know something, but hopefully there will be somebody in the chat or in the comments of a video that will be able to answer that. And again, that's one of the reasons I really want to foster the community around the show, is so that I can continue to learn from other people who are doing this maybe in a slightly different way than I am. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, Galaxy CDs rocks. You can find me.
Keep it in mind. So Ryan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend some time with us. We really enjoyed having you, and we will, and like I said, go and check Ryan out. You will definitely not be sorry for doing that if you're not familiar with him at this point. And keep an eye. We'll be, we'll be doing this as well, continuing with other YouTubers. I guess just watch our page, right, Mary? Mary will generally be posting what's coming up.
Subscribe and hit that notification bell.
That's
that way you never miss a video.
Yeah,
I'm so bad at asking people to do that.
I'm the same way
like
too.
a pro, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess just a final thought. Like, I have no aspirations of being this gargantuan YouTube channel, and I'm never going to have channel membership or any of that, a Patreon. I will never say never, but I didn't even say subscribe, but actually I'm doing the channel and people a disservice, because I think by the nature of our channel, that's information dissemination, for someone to at least have the notifications on so that they know when we got something going on that's beneficial to them. So I say subscribe only for the purpose of putting the notification on, and you'll be apprised of anything that comes up. Yep. So I want to thank you again, Ryan, and thanks everyone for spending the time and checking our channel out, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.